those of you that haven't met Carolyn before, she lives in the Upper Keys part-time and she is a professional both with Hudson Ferris and with her own company, working with nonprofits and helping them do this kind of work. So we're really thankful that she's able to join us again. Thank you, Carolyn. And Amy from Ocean Reef Community Foundation, our co-facilitator, is also here. So it's great to see you all this morning, and I'll let Carolyn go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much. You're kind of hidden on the side so that I can look at my screen. So just if someone sees a hand up and I don't see it, please just kind of yell out to me so I can catch questions. So I don't want this to be a monologue, which it may a little bit, but I definitely want to take pauses throughout because I'm going to be throwing a lot of information out at you. So I am very anxious to get going. So just quick about me. This is a really big picture of my face. I'm Carolyn Salvador. I have worked 25 plus years in the nonprofit world, serving on boards, starting nonprofits, and about 15 years being CEO, executive director of nonprofits. So I have been in your shoes. I know what it's like. I've had small teams, I've grown teams, never been on a big team. I wish one day maybe, but I've always tried to figure out, how to do extraordinary things with limited resources. So really excited. As Hannah and I think Amy mentioned, I do live in the Keys part-time. I'm here calling in from Atlanta, but hoping to get down south pretty quickly. So my company is Momentum One Consulting. I tend to concentrate on small to emerging nonprofits, and I partner with the firm Hudson Ferris that gives me capacity to be able to work with larger nonprofits or people that are running things like capital campaigns. So I will kind of keep going. So we are here at a great time. There's a lot ahead, and I know I'm kind of singing to the choir, but it's a really important time because a lot of giving is ahead. What I'm about to kind of present to you are a lot of tactics to be able to kind of get you from where we are today to the end of the year. I recognize that some of you have like you're a team of one or you're a volunteer team. And so I'm going to give you a lot of information. Please don't have your head explode and think I've got to do everything that you're telling me right now. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm saying understand it, take what you can execute, find some new things to be able to execute and make it yours. And I'm going to throw in, so I am an AI forward leader. I actually am a certified AI consultant. So what I've put in here also is using AI, and I'm going to show you actually some ways to be able to kind of 5x your time by using AI to be able to help you through this. So what's ahead for us? Probably not a surprise, but a lot of donations come in at the end of the year, 50% in Q4, regardless of the fact that your year may or may not end. At the end of December, our donors don't really recognize that. It's a lot, 30% coming in December. So a lot of dollars are sitting out there on the table and 10% the last week. And I think I was kind of blown away with that statistic because I don't think I recognized that when I was a leader, because by the time the last week of the month of the year came in, I was exhausted, like really exhausted and really looking for some time off. But there's a lot of money to be able to still garner from your supporters. So before we can kind of really think about strategizing on this great campaign, what are we doing? You've got to know what your numbers are. You've got to be able to actually know where you need to go, and then you can be able to develop those tactics to get there. So the first two parts of my conversation today with you, I'll say, are not really sexy, but they're really important. And so you'd be surprised of how many people are like, well, I actually don't know what my goals are. So let's talk through a little bit of how do you analyze that? Like, how do you kind of dig in a little bit deeper to kind of figure out what you need? So this is just a framework of like things that you should audit. Understanding some of you might not have the data to audit all of it, but I'm going to talk through some of this and then you, again, take what you can do and then be able to try to execute against it. The first is analysis, like go in and analyze what you did. I think too many organizations like don't do a debrief or a post-mortem of the end of year, the last couple weeks of the year, because you're exhausted and you're like taking a breath. And so then we start to move on for next year. but go in as best as you can. Look at your revenue by month. What did you do October, November, December? If you can, break that down to the categories of your donor. Let's say that I did $100,000 in the last month of the year. It's a really different story for me if it all came like 80% came from, small donors versus I got like four transformative gifts. Well, that's really good for me to know because I'm going to have a different strategy to work against both of those things. Look at your numbers of donors. Did you get new donors? Did you have people fundraise for you? I ran an organization and we really knocked it out of the park, I think, with the National Giving Tuesday. And so I had a lot of great people doing fundraising for me, doing those peer to peer. Well, I needed to know that going into, my fourth quarter, because believe me, I was going to talk to those people again and see if they would consider again doing that fundraising, right? That knowledge is power for me. If I forget to ask them and I'm like, wait, why are we down? I'm like, oh, because Joe didn't do his fundraiser and he raised $15,000, right? I want to be able to get ahead of that. And then I want to look at like, how did the money come in? Was it on Facebook fundraisers? Were people responding to my text messaging? Did, a lot of people write checks? That's going to just help me craft my strategy. Then I'm going to look at like, what did I do? So right now, I'm digging into people. Some of my clients have, I'm going to tell me what you did last year so we can kind of work against that. How many emails did you send out? What were your open rates? Right? What were your open rates of emails? You could craft a great campaign, but if you get 10% open rates, like that's telling. Maybe it's your subject lines, maybe it's your list, but it's good information to know. And even as you start to look at them, if your email campaigns are sitting like in your um, MailChimp, let's say, right? You can kind of look at which ones actually got higher open rates. Was there a message? Was there a subject line? I want you to be a detective and investigate because all of that is great information for you then to plan moving forward. Then let's not forget our donors, right? We want to kind of look at them. How many donors totally gave? Like, did your reoccurring or monthly donors, did they give again? Did you ask them, right? Did you get major gifts coming in? So all of this is really vital information so that we can plan moving forward. Now, I'm not going to go into like what a SMART goal is because, you people are smart and know, but again, this sets up now that you have all that data, like start to establish what your goals are. Maybe you have a small contact list and you didn't get a lot of donations. So success could look like for you building your email list, right? Because that's going to set you up for success. But that's really important to kind of set those targets. And then the next piece is set interim benchmarks. So I was kind of liken this to being like, I'm going to lose 20 pounds before my high school reunion in June. And then I never get on the scale and weigh myself until like 2 weeks before. I'm like, oh, I've lost 2 pounds. Well, maybe I should have like gone on that scale and dialed back my glass of wine in the evening or something, whatever it is, right? So you've got to establish some interim milestones for you. It could be okay, by the end of November, I want, 60% of my goal to be in. Then you can check because if you don't have those checkpoints, you can't adjust tack halfway through. And so one of the things I find sometimes is people are like, well, this was my plan and I just executed the plan. Now that is great. We want you to execute the plan. But if you don't have checkpoints in there, you can't adjust. And that's really important to kind of have that nimble mindset because you might find that some things are really working well and you want to double down, or you might want to back off of a strategy that's not working or understand why. So, again, without going through the nitty gritty here, have some measurable benchmarks that can help you figure out where you are to your goals before you kind of get in at the end of December and you're like, oh, we're off like 25%. And I don't have any time to do anything against it. All right, I'm going to take a pause. Does that make sense? Like kind of setting up those goals. And so many people go into this like, well, I just know I need to raise money. I know it's a big part of the year. I'm just going to start throwing spaghetti on the wall and do it. But I think having those tactics and knowing will help really guide like what's important for you as an organization. Second part, not sexy again, but it is really getting your house in order, which really involves your infrastructure. Now, this one's not really a hard lift, And you can actually, I would advise if you're super close to it to get someone else to help you in this part. And it's audit your website. I had a new client on board last week and we had this great kickoff meeting and I was all over their website going through it and I thought I knew what they did. And I went on their website and I was like, and they, started talking about we're going to reform and, reintegrate. And I was like, I don't still get what you do. Like it's not clear to me exactly what you do. So those of us that are so close to the mission, like you know it, like you see it, but understand that donors are coming to your website, attention spans of gnats, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, like we're all so busy. So you've got to have really clear, what you do, why you do it, who you serve on that homepage. Don't make me dig around. Don't make me guess. Don't use like flowery terms that, like we bring hope. Okay, like we all want hope, but I don't know what hope means. Like really truly like tell me those things so that you can capture me and give me the opportunity to get more information. Remove old stuff from your website. So again, like you could get your husband, get a volunteer or get a board member, give them a couple pages, go through and tell me take off the old stuff. I'm like, here's ways to support us, and I click on someone's website and it's an event from March, right? Like get that off of there, like clear it off. Is your contact information, good, updated? Have you put your 990 on there? Or maybe you've got your candid seal or you're a great nonprofit. Put it all on there. Make it really easy for me. And then importantly, get those donation buttons to make sure that they're really clear. You've got calls to action. And then I'd say by the end of October, flip those to your new campaign. Like, don't have some old campaign out there or whatever. Like, make it again, like, make sure that your website is really, really like your best foot forward for giving. The other piece of the website is your donation pages. Um, this is a stat that I've heard it over and over again. And every time I hear it, I kind of gasp is that conversion rate. That is those people that actually you've done a great job. You've given them that appeal. They click on it. They get down to your donation page. Only 10 to 20% actually follow through and make a donation. Like that's so alarming to me that you can do everything right and then they don't follow through. And there's a lot of reasons why, but we're busy, we're distracted. I have my credit card at hand. It's not easy. 60% of donations now are, on phone. Like we all walk around with our little mini computers right in our hands. So we're checking stuff out. So make sure your donation pages are optimized. The other piece is like I could have read something or picked up a Google ad or followed you and clicked through it, and you're bringing me down this reasoning why children need great after school care, and then I click to the donation pages and you're talking about food. Well, wait a second. I thought like I got it. Like I really believe in education, and now I'm on food. Well, now I got to go back and check that out. Well, I don't come back. Right. So you want to have that congruency between like the messaging and what they land on. If you ask me for too many fields, and you're getting like really invasive, I know we want data, and believe me, I'm going to talk about data. But if you ask for too much, I don't have time. I'm going to click off of it. And then in today's world and the narrative about nonprofits and defunding, like there's a lot of mistrust, unfortunately, that's out there. So we want to give them trust signals along the way that you're a credible organization. You're going to be a good steward of the money. So if you can on your, certainly on your website, but on your donation pages, add some of those other trust symbols. It could be a testimonial even like that you put in there or an impact story. And then we get to the amounts, like be really clear about your, donation amounts. I'm of the vein of going from highest to lowest. Some people have other theories about like the dollar amounts. I always like to default to monthly donors, but also when you can give them the impact of a gift. $100 will do things like blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying restrict your money, right? But again, tell me what my money, you're making me, okay, now I see it. Like I'm not giving my money away. It's going to really have meaning. And then if possible, give other ways to give. We're going to talk about it briefly today, but DAFs and giving other, I mean, those are rising and rising and rising. So why not put language in there, right? Data. Data. This can make or break your campaign. It's not fun. But it's really absolutely essential that we get our data in order. A lot of times I get it. Like if you don't have a robust CRM, you might have like it's on an Excel spreadsheet, it's over here. I'm getting some, money from Benevity. I'm getting it here from PayPal. It's not in one place. And then you've got like a separate email platform. So the one thing I say is like make sure that like whatever you're emailing from, like all of your donors are in there. You've got information, you've cleaned up your, duplicates. Anyone that said take me off, you've taken off. Um, do some data scrubbing. And I know this is hard because, like, maybe someone sent you a check and you don't have information. I did just stumble across a program that I was pretty excited about that does data hygiene and data cleanup. And what that means is like it can actually go and find emails for you, and it can find addresses. So if you're interested, you'll get my number. So ping me, and it's pretty low cost. I want to say like 250-ish to $300 for like 500 records to be cleaned and enhanced. I feel like that's not awful to be able to actually have some good donor data. So just ping me afterwards, and I'll get you connected there. But going through again, just making sure that if you can segment donors, because all donors are not equal. They are interested in different aspects of your work. Maybe you've had people that have given you money every time and you'd like to recognize that. The more that you can segment donors and target them, the better result that you're going to have. Facebook fundraising. So a lot of nonprofits have Facebook, you're using it for your social media, but go in and again, take an eyeball at what your Facebook looks like. Make sure your fundraising tools are activated and you've created a fundraising tool to whatever end of year campaign you have. I would change your banner ad, and then I would, change that to be able to be in line with your campaign. And then if you, can try to, and we'll talk about board engagement, like try to get some people to peer fundraise. If you do peer to peer fundraise yourself for your organization, seed your campaign. Please seed your campaign. Nothing is worse than having a campaign where there's zero funds raised. Even if you put $20 in there, like people want to be part of a winning team. So if you have things like if you have goals and you're publicly talking about those goals, try to seed part of them, right? Be able to ask board members to support it, get some money in the tank so that you can see that, barometer go up or hide the barometer. Now is the time to kind of think about gathering your assets. Your assets are your stories and your images because you're going to rely on those to be able to actually execute your campaign. So gather, you might have stories in different places, pull them together for their end of year campaign. You can ask your board members to do, a quick video, 30 seconds, why they support the organization. That's a great way to drop into some things. Interview your constituents. Who are you helping? Who are you helping? Maybe they don't want to be on camera, and that's okay. You can do a Zoom camera, hide their things, but create a very short interview template. And it's really easy to do. You can have a volunteer do it, record it, and then I'll kind of show you later in AI how you can take that recording or transcript and turn it into like a really cool narrative. But here's kind of the questions because we want to be able to talk about that transformational arc, that hero story. So, what was happening before someone came into your program? What was going on? How did they feel? Like we like to talk about emotions because people give because of emotions. Like what was happening? I didn't have a safe place to, for my child to go after school. He was out there, and I was really worried he was getting mixed up with a bad group, right? This is just an example. So when he found, where's, branches, right? He went into our program. Now he has safe, he's thriving. So you're talking about like what happened? What did you do? And now what's the outcome? So those are kind of the three components of like just a really quick storytelling. And so you can sculpt a couple questions to ask people, save them, put them in your database. It can be anything, but I think that's really important for you to gather this now. So before we kind of launch into starting to ask people for money, I want you to go back and take a look at like when was the last time you actually reached out to your donors and you spoke to them and you informed them about the work you did or you thanked them and you didn't ask. you didn't ask, right? Often, sometimes I find, well, we did that end of year campaign, and I think we sent an email out once, and there's not a lot. Okay, well, and there's no, this is the no judgment zone here, but now is the time. We have this really short window of opportunity to engage and re-engage our donors. And I'd say, even if you're doing a good job, great, wonderful. You've got stuff to build on. But again, now is the time. If you are doing any asking, I would, highly recommend that you consider putting that on pause, because things are going to get a little, a little dicey, a little aggressive asking toward the end of the year. So you want to kind of give them a breather. So this time is really about talking about the impact, sharing what you've done, certainly thanking people if you feel like, I feel like we could always thank more. But so this could look like sending, an email just to talk about, an aspect of your program, again, that transformational story. Because of you, these are the great things we were doing. You can cast your vision forward of what you're excited about for 2026. Send the newsletter. If you want to get more involved with donors that are mid or major donors, bring them in a little behind the scenes look, or invite them to come in and take a peek. Schedule the virtual coffee or the in-person meetings. Like, this is a time to kind of do all the things. Maybe this is your time right before the end of year, to be able to shore up that you're talking about what you're doing, why you're doing, and the impact that your donors have made. Now, I say donors, but if you haven't talked to your contact list about just what you do, why you do, absolutely include them in that narrative. It's also a really good time to bring in your board members and do what I call a thank you-a-thon. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but this is like, you're not asking your donor or your board members to ask for money, so they feel okay, a little bit happier about that, but you're just telling them to thank. And it's a quick script to call people that have donated. You can choose who you want to thank. It can be first-time donors, it can be anyone that signed up for monthly donors, it can be donors over a certain amount. And it's like, hey, this is Carolyn. I'm calling from, XYZ organization. I just wanted to thank you. We see you've been giving every month. Like, that really means the world to us, because you are helping us do X. And I'm not here to ask you for money. I am just here to thank you. 95% of the time, you're going to get a voicemail. You leave it on there. And by the way, say, I'm a board member. And so that speaks volumes. If you catch someone, ask them, like, I'd love to just take a few minutes. If you haven't, I know you're busy, tell me why you like grief. What was it about our work? Hi, Jill. Like, what was it about our work that we do that resonated with you? And then, by the way, take notes. Like, absolutely, like, take notes and put it on their donor record, so that you can, again, like, oh, she really is a diver, and she loved the reef, and she's really upset about the coral bleaching. I'm making this up, right? I know you're counting fish, but kind of going in there and thinking about, like, what it is. And so now you can talk about it, you can personalize that. So again, really important intel for you. All right, so now we've done, so I'm going to pause. Now I get to stuff I really like to talk about, which is like the campaign stuff. I'm going to look around. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments or questions about those aspects? We good? Heads nodding. We're like, okay. All right, perfect. All right. So now we've done our homework. We kind of know our goal. The website's updated, our data is good. Like, let's now, and again, this doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be linear. You can start all these things at once, but I know you're strapped for resources. Well, let's think about, how do we want to go forth in the world and actually, like, talk about the work that we're doing. So let's kind of start thinking about, like, what kind of campaigns, what are we going to talk about? What is the central theme for what we're doing? I like to use AI to be able to help jumpstart that. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to do that. You can do that manually. Absolutely, no harm in doing that. I think using AI kind of gets you there quicker and might really help, free up some time. So before we launch the campaign, though, we have to think about and remind ourselves, I know you know this, why do donors give? Why do donors give? It's kind of the five truths. but they give. The primary one is because we've asked them to. We ask them to give. So we have to put, some people don't like to ask. A lot of people don't like to ask. If you're a nonprofit, so you got to get comfortable with asking, right? But they were asked. That's the important thing. And people giving away your money is not rational. It's driven by emotion. That is the driver, but it's followed by reasoning, meaning that we've got to give them, what's frictionless fundraising. We've got to give them no reason not to give to us. And I got to know that my money's making a difference. Like if I'm giving you $500, I don't, I want to know it's going to have an impact. And then I'd like to see the connection between that gift and that impact. So if you can kind of tell me, I'm not advocating restricting funds, like what $500 would do for your organization. Things like such and such and such and such, right? Again, I am absolutely not talking about restricting money, but it seems, it needed to make it a little bit more tangible for me, right? Tell me a little bit more. And then you're going to try to find donors that are aligned with your work. And, I'm looking at Reef and I'm looking at branches. Maybe there's a Venn diagram in which some of those donors overlap, but my fish people are going to donate to right organizations that are doing what I care about. If I'm rescuing, pets off a Card Sound Road, I'm gonna right. I those are going to be the people I want to go after. So we have to think about that. You're not trying, your universe isn't everyone. Just because someone's got a nice list of donors, you're not going to be like, yeah, I want them. Like you want donors that care about what you do. Those are your people. Those are the people that you're going to develop. That's why we call it, development directors, not fundraising directors. Like this is about building relationships. As we start to launch into the campaigns and the appeals, it is about emotional storytelling. That's why you've gathered it. But this is just to remind you that whether you decide to go through and be like, Carolyn, I can't even think about AI, that makes me crazy, I think it's the devil, or you want to try to do this on your own, emotional storytelling is your backbone of what you are going to do. So it truly inspires donors. So I want you to think about it in terms of like when you start to launch your campaign, this is like single goal. You're trying to raise money. You are not trying to educate and inform them about the work you've done. You not really trying to thank them. Yes, we want to put a thanks to donors like you. We've been able to do that in our appeal letters, but you're not trying to do those three things at once. I worked with an organization about a year or so ago, and I was going through their appeal letters. This is a 100-year-old faith-based organization that rescues children from Guatemala and really horrible things and does trauma-informed care. Great, great organization. They're like, yeah, like they have lots of donors. Like this is falling flat. Like people aren't supporting us. It's like, well, let me see it. Their appeal was 2 pages full of God speak about their work, about this and that. And I got to, and the very, very end of the second page was, and thank you for supporting us. I was like, well, wait, you didn't, you were informing me. You didn't like that was not an appeal. So now is your time to catch up on your informing, right? This is your kind of quiet period of re-informing, re-engaging, making sure they know what you do so that you can then start to be able to tug at their heartstrings. So we want to focus on that kind of single clear goal and your purpose. And then we want to, as best as possible with the technology you have, personalize your messaging. If you put my name in a subject line, it is crazy how my open rate goes up. If you can do that, if you can say, Carolyn, we love blah, blah, blah. Again, you're talking to me, not like dear friend or hello, right? Again, those are just little nuances that, again, help you be able to drive more donations for your organization. And we already talked about this, right? The high impact story, but importantly, telling the story about one life or one thing as an indication of a greater need. So help provide more meals for children like Maria, right? So we tell Maria's narrative, we bring her through, and now we want to get you like the problem isn't solved, right? You're still, but we want to make sure that people know that it is solvable and maybe the next dollar is going to help. So we want to bring them through, but we want to talk about like one thing as an indication of a greater need. Again, we talked about linking the impact with a gift, what $100 will do, and then having clear calls to action. Clear. I like to say 3 calls to action in your appeal letter. And we want it to be hopeful. Hope mixed with urgency tends to work, right? We don't want to think about like there's been billions spent on cancer, right? What if the appeals were like, well, nothing's really working. We haven't moved the needle, but would you give us some more money? Would you give me $50? Well, I know research costs money. Like I'm not really compelled to do that. So the urgency is like we are so close to finding a cure. It may or may not be, but you're creating urgency, you're helping me. Okay, now here's the fun stuff. So again, whether you use AI or not, there's a little worksheet. You're going to get this PowerPoint, but to start kind of putting your thoughts together, this was built a little bit more around you're going to take this information and put it into AI. So some of this may not be relevant because you know what your mission is and you know who you serve. But this might be good for, again, working with board members, working with someone else that's going to help you with your campaign. So you want to put together kind of just your overview as an organization, what your campaign goal is. Maybe it's to raise 200,000, 50,000, 10,000. I want to get more contacts. And then importantly, kind of, is there a target of a program or some aspect that you want to talk about? You want to use that as kind of the through line for your campaign, a special aspect of your work. You're going to write that down. And then who are your target audiences? What do they look like? If you could, what's your donor persona? I work with children. So, you know what, even though I know, like I kind of know, I call them kid crusaders. Like I want parents, I want the grandparents, right? I want people that have walked in the shoes. They can kind of, I'm tugging on their empathy. I get that, right? Or maybe it's faith-based. Those are part of my donor personas. What's your tone? What's your brand voice? I always like to do urgent because urgency kind of gets people moving. We talked about hopeful, but is it, we're all part of this community. We need each other to be able to lift all in the community. Are there certain phrases in your line of work that are now not used? Right? What are things you don't want to use anymore? And there's been a shift, and I'm not going to get into like word choices, right? But DE&I is not very popular right now. But if you're doing something that's in the equity space, and maybe you talk about improving workforce, right? Or doing you're kind of so you're shifting and moving, like what are the words that you want to use, don't want to use? And then thinking about those emotional drivers. What is your story of greater need? Again, how are you going to communicate? Is this primarily through email? You're doing direct mail, Facebook? Are you doing some texting? What does it look like for you? Do you have a Google AdWords grant? Are you going to do display ads? So what are your channels? And then are there anything special? There are opportunities. Are you going to do a matching gift? And we'll talk about kind of leveraging that. Are you going to participate in National Giving Tuesday? Are there any milestones you're celebrating? So think about all of those pieces that can kind of go into this campaign worksheet. So write it down, right? Write it down. So I'm going to show you how you can kind of take this information and talk to our large language model, LLM, that is ChatGPT, that is Claude, that is Perplexity, Grok, Gemini, notebooks, all of those things are large language models. A lot of people like, yeah, I dabbled in it. I asked it some questions and didn't really give me a great answer. I hate to break it to you, but the problem is you. It is. So it's not, you don't have to know code to use these, but you do need to know how to do what's called prompt engineering. It is the basics of how we talk to our large language model. And there are four things. If you get nothing else from this, like there are four things that you need to put in every prompt. That's like with that little thing, what would you like to do today, Carolyn? Is your prompt. You need to assign it a role. That is, tell me who I am. You are a expert fundraiser that writes, compelling narratives and appeal letters like a Madison Avenue, ad executive, whatever. I always like to hype it up. What's your role? What's the task? You are going to write a transformational appeal letter to donor X, for the end of year campaign. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. The context, that's all the background that you've compelled. I'm going to highlight this aspect of my work. These are this is my target. This is what I'm doing. And the output should be, this is for an email. This is for an email. This is for an appeal. I don't want more than 250. I want you to use 3 calls to action. So this is your kind of incorporating your prompts. Now, these 4 things, take away the appeal, use these anytime you use ChatGPT or Claude or anything that you use. So what this looks like in a prompt is this. Okay. And again, you can see if you can, I'm just going to read it because I know sometimes the font's a little small. You are an expert nonprofit marketing strategist who specializes in emotionally donor-driven campaigns to drive giving. Task, using the context below, generate 20 unique campaign concepts for the end of year campaign for this organization. Now I would put whatever organization. My context is what you did on that other page. Here's my organization. Here's who I serve, my goals, my target audience, all of this, right? What we just did. Special opportunities. Example, gifts will be doubled if received by, 12/10. The campaign, and the output, this is what I want you to give for me. I'm very specific. I want you 20 concepts that give me the name, something memorable, a tagline, a couple headlines, maybe some activations, give me some ideas and talk to me about this. And then I give it some other pieces of it. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to actually show you what this looks like in action. And if we have time at the end, I will get a volunteer and we'll do this. Okay, so can you all see my screen now? Is that a yes? Can you see it's Claude? Okay, good. I've got it. Perfect. So you can see that I use Claude. I like Claude for writing. I use Perplexity for research. I use ChatGPT as kind of my Swiss Army knife. I really like Claude for writing. So I've plugged this in, right? And I'm using this campaign. I'm using Sky Precious Kids. And so I put in their thing. I've given actually their website. I've given the goal, all the things I'm expressing my mobility program. This is just what I had in that prompt. Now I hit go, and in a matter of a minute or two, look what it produced for me. All right. So this was their mobility program, which is adaptive mobility, giving kids with disabilities bikes. So Wheels of Wonder, every child deserves to feel the wind in their hair. When insurance says no, we say yes to childhood dreams. And it just goes on and on. Some I like. Rebuilding what disease took away, right? Side by side. No child should watch from the sidelines. Here's your matching gift. Here's all of this. It goes on. December Miracles, Freedom Riders, Small Gifts, Giant Leaps, Pure Magic, Where Obstacles End, Adventure Begins. Like pretty cool stuff, right? Like, and I'm not saying I like all of them, but I'm going to go through this and pick and choose. So this is a great way to jumpstart those creative juices for you, right? It's additive. It's helping you. Like, oh, I didn't think about saying it this way or taking this. Like, I can build. We fix what disease breaks. I can build a campaign around that, right? I'm going to do that. Like, help us fix 50 broken dreams. I mean, that seems a little dismal. I want it to be a little more optimistic, but 50 kids racing toward brighter tomorrows. So this is kind of the point of using it to be able to jumpstart your campaign. Okay. So now let's say that I picked a campaign, right? I picked a campaign and now I want to be able to create an email. So let me go back to my presentation here for a second. Okay, let's share with you again here. A lot of sharing going on here, so navigating this. So now I've picked a campaign, I've got a theme, I've got some cool taglines. So I want to start thinking about like writing those appeal letters. So I'm going to use this then to be able to like perfect my appeal. So in an appeal letter, this is kind of the anatomy that we're going to incorporate. And this is whether you're using ChatGPT or not, but it is about like presenting the problem. So we've got to tell people like why you're doing what you're doing, right? And then your organization is part of the solution. The donor is involved in there too. The donor is part of that hero journey because of the donations, you're able to do the work you do, right? Without that, you can't do the work you do. The impact and urgency and call to action. So those are part of the perfect appeal. All right. So I'm going to then create a prompt to create this appeal. So again, I'm giving it the role. I'm telling it it's an amazing copywriter that is done, right? It's creating compelling copy. I'm going to ask it to write a short series of emails. I would tell it probably like how many appeals I want. Here's the theme. So I'm copying and pasting the who we serve, the theme, all of that from that previous campaign. I'm going to tell it again, each email campaign should include a story arc, donor is a hero, 3 calls to action. And this is what I want the email to look like, my output. Again, I'm being specific. So body copy, this words, call to action. I'm giving it even special instructions. So now I'm going to share with you what that looks like. Oh, let's see. Hang on. Let me search my chats here. Hang on. Okay. Sorry, guys. Bear with me here. It was teed up here. Oh, okay. Did it go to Claude? Is it on Claude right now? Yes, you can see side by side. Okay, perfect. So I plugged in side by side. I gave it, the whole prompt, and then I clicked go. And then it's now completing. It says I've completed a comprehensive 10 email campaign side by side. It's going through it. I can click on this, and it actually launches into the campaign body for me. I give now what it will do, sibling story. And by the way, if I don't like any of this, I can talk back to it and say, like, I need you to enhance it and put like the gift for every dollar amount in here. Well, here it is right here, right? But I can go and say, okay, I want to emphasize a different part of it, or I want to, but it's here for me. It is a great starting point for you. Like, and that work, it took me work up front to be able to fill out that worksheet, think about it, create the prompt. I had to again, but you're going to get these prompts from me. And then I was able to use it. And then I just copy and paste this into a Word document. I can play around with it. I can upload it. I can add images, but it is kind of a done for you way to be able to start to kind of jumpstart this end of year. All right. So I'm going to share. Oh, thanks for the heart. I appreciate it. Okay. So another cool way that I use AI is to enhance stories. What I found sometimes where when you ask someone that you're helping, like to tell the story, it becomes very much about like, on March 5th, I lost my job. And then the next day was like, it becomes very much like this linear kind of storytelling. And it's not really emotionally driven. So I use a prompt and I ask, Chat GPT or Claude. I can take a transcript because if you have if anyone uses Fathom or anything else to do like a note taker in your Zoom, you can actually ask for a transcript and you can plug it in here and plug it into Chat GPT as a transcript and ask it to rewrite the story, giving it like, I need these 3 things. I need it to be emotionally compelling. I need a hero's journey. Some of the same prompts that you had in the other one, plug it in. Or you can take a written story and ask it to consolidate it using, again, your role. You are an expert storyteller that knows how to, take stories and drive them into appeal letters. And you use the same prompts, but you can use AI for this as well. It's really pretty amazing. Okay. So now we've kind of talked about all the pieces leading up to, you've got your stories, you've got your appeal, you've got your campaign. And I realize there's lots of other parts of campaign, but I want to be mindful of our time because I could go on for hours about this. But like, let's just kind of talk about what the calendar could look like for you. And so how often you should be talking about this. So the first part is what I'm calling our stewardship phase, phase 1. That's really and truly like right now, we're informing and we're thanking. And we kind of went over that. Mid-October-ish to November is your launch, right? Is your launch. It could be soft launch because maybe you're going to use National Giving Tuesday and you're going to use that to really push forward your end of year giving. If you are, I call it NGT. So if you are using National Giving Tuesday, you're going to have some emails, obviously, leading up to National Giving Tuesday, like weekly. And then during the week of National Giving Tuesday, you're going to have several emails, like tomorrow is the day, and then on National Giving Tuesday, multiple emails that day. I know that what I'm about to present to you is going to sound like my donors are going to hate me. It's super aggressive, but people are busy. It takes like 7 times to hear a message. Like, people are busy. You've got to hit them, or you click on it, go, yeah, yeah, I need to do it. And then you forget about it and you move on. So you hit them again. There's still time, right? Oh God, I need to do that now. That's why so many donations come in on 12/31. It's like, is human nature, absolute human nature. But if you're not talking to them, you are out of sight and out of mind. Mid-November, or rather mid-October to November, if you've got matching opportunities, it's a great idea to kind of wet the whistle. Like starting on National Giving Tuesday, all donations will be matched dollar for dollar, whatever it is. Let's say you're not doing National Giving Tuesday, but I would think about your cadence starting to shift in mid-October to November, that your emails are going to start. Some people launch their end of year at the very end of October, others wait to November. That's your choice. Either one. You could have, if you're doing National Giving Tuesday, not doing it, but start to do it like every 2 weeks. You're going to crescendo as we get into December. By November, week 3, your emails are going to shift to weekly. If anyone does text messaging, there's been studies that show if you send a text directly after you send an email, like within a day, like again, you're hitting them in a different way, multi-channel. Your social media, don't bombard them with asks every day, but I would say that the social should either correspond with or lag a day after your appeal letter comes out. Now, when we start looking forward to, I'm trying to move all year to December, then we get a little bit more aggressive here. You're going to start with weekly emails. These are appeals. And in the last 2 weeks, you're going to send a lot of emails, a lot. So you're going to send like 2 per week. And then as you get up to that last week, you could have 4 to 6 emails, 4 to 6. I would send minimally 2 on the last day, minimally 2. So remember, 10% of like the whole year of fundraising comes in that last week. That is nuts to think about, but we have to kind of rise above. Now, it doesn't have to be all emails. You can absolutely do phone calls. You can do phone calls. You can do text. You can do social. You can write notes. You can send direct mail. I'm not sitting here telling you it needs to be. In fact, the more omni-channel you can do, the better, the absolute better. This is just kind of showing you what that cadence can look like.
Carolyn, can I ask you a quick question about the cadence before we move on? This is
Absolutely.
this is Leah. How much of that messaging is repetitive, right? Like, are those each unique messages? If we're talking, 4 emails the last week, and we've already done one per week for 3 weeks prior, and every other week, that's lots
Yeah,
and lots of messaging.
it's a great question. So would you consider using AI to help you?
I use it every day.
I'd love to hear that. So your messaging is going to be around the same theme, but it'll be different, right? It'll be short. It'll be much shorter. It'll be choppier. Like, there's still time. Hey, so you're going to modify that slightly for each one. You're still going to have your calls to action, but you're going to modify. You would not email the same thing 3 times. You would change it, 24 hours, 8 hours. Today's the day. We are so excited. Like, help us get through the finish line, right? Still similar. Maybe you're not going to tell the story, the emotional big long storytelling, but you're going to like just talk about the impact of the dollars. And like, if you do this, this is going to happen. But you can use 100% use AI to help you say, this was my campaign. I need 3 or 4 for the last day. Don't duplicate it. Make them short, pithier. Again, we don't, we want to create that urgency and hopefulness.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So social media, if you're using it, I know 3 to 5 times is a lot. So, but again, get your posts going because you want to start engaging people on there. Certainly if you're going to ask for some fundraising on there. but your content should have this mix. So 40% impact stories. And right now, for by the way, for September, October, I really don't want you asking in your social media mix unless you have like something crazy, an event, like it's you've got to do this. But I would like make it a lot about like the impact, what you do, even like here's what we do, here's why we do it. Here's some stories to tell. This is where you could put a board's, quick video in there, why I'm on the board, why I think it's so important. It can be again, like, don't think, I think sometimes we get, because there's so many like social influencers out there, we think it has to be all whatever, but it can be like, hey, I'm walking through, the school and I'm just taking a quick video, like, like this is a day in the life. It can be some, again, you're giving that kind of behind the scenes. So don't get hung up on it, just get it out there and but start doing it. So then when we get into it, 30%, will be that kind of direct ask. So, because you don't want to disengage your people like every day, right? But you want to be able to have that mix. And so now is a time, certainly on your social media, to be flexing the muscle and telling them what you do, why you do it. Maybe you interview a donor, like why I've supported, like this is the impact it's making. Again, all of that stuff is helping your story. Phone calls are great. Now is the time, to start those personal phone calls, certainly with your top donors and being able to talk about the impact that they've made, talk about, what your cast forward is for them, and start to develop those asks if they haven't. When you look at your donor data, you're going to see, by the way, who gives primarily in fourth quarter. Those are your targets, right? You want to make sure that you're, not getting any lapsed donors, like you're having those conversations. Maybe it's someone that gave and you're going to want to ask them, can they be part of this match? You've been so generous. This is what we're trying to do. People love matches because it leverages dollars. So have those phone calls, have those coffees, activate your board. They are there to be able to give you capacity. I recognize that board members don't often like to ask for money, but you can ask them to do some things. Maybe it's introductions. Maybe it's again putting, giving them, and we'll talk about this in a second, giving them some tools so they could put it on their social media or their LinkedIn. They can share. And then that thank you a-thon is a great way to engage board members. And they get energized by that. Like they really get energized. Our board members, they should be your most passionate advocates. They should, be the people that want to go out and really talk about the work you do. So here's some just kind of ways to kind of engage them. And I was talking about building a toolkit because a lot of times board members, like you're in the weeds, you know what you're doing, you know how to talk about it. I used to be the CEO of a charity that did pediatric heart transplant research. We funded it all over the world. Every board meeting, I would bring in our head scientists. I felt like I became a scientist. We'd talk about why organ rejection happened, all the types of organ rejection, all the studies. I try to make it really, user friendly, but their eyes would glaze over sometimes. Like they're like, yeah, heart transplant doesn't last. Like that's what they knew. So I gave them like little sound bites and talking points. I even created a little thing that they could put in their on their emails, like proud board member of Enduring Hearts. And so they could pop that into their, email signature line, ask me about it. Right. And so that became a conversation starter with them and a lot of like what they do. Some people were in development. So when they were out there talking to people, like, hey, what's this heart thing at the bottom? Well, let me tell you. And then I gave them a toolkit, which is email templates. Maybe they want to do a fundraiser or they want to open their networks, help them draft something. You can, again, use Chat GPT to take one of your fabulous, appeal letters and change it, modify it for a board member. Maybe you give them a social media post just for them that they want to post and share. I would also ask them, go through your board members, make sure they've given, because 100%, you'd like them to have 100% participation. Even if they participate, in the end of the year and they've already given, like ask them again, like we really are shooting for 100% participation at the end of the year. And then leverage their networks. That is why they are there, to open doors for you. Very, very important. So kind of going to close with a couple of strategies for you to consider. I've talked about the matching gift part of things. I know it's late in the game. So, this is really by and large work that could have been done earlier, but there's still time. If you've got some major donors that typically give at the end of the year, it's a great conversation starter to go to them and say, hey, look, we're trying to put together 25,000 or whatever it is, right? Whatever, like of matching gifts. And so your dollars, would you consider donating, $30,000 again, and letting us talk about that in a matching gift? That way, like your dollars are going to be doubled. Or, small donors and large donors like to see their gifts doubled, right? We all want to be part of that. So it's a great conversation. But securing that and then being able to start talking about it in your campaigns. So, have that shored up by October. You still have time, right? You still have 4 weeks or so to be able to do that. Maybe you want a corporate partner. It doesn't have to be all individual donors, by the way. It can be, it can be some corporate partners that you go to ask this. And then you could get, you could say matching gifts sponsored by such and such, right? And that's great. And then you get the eyeballs. You can say, you know what, we're going to send 10 emails out to 1,000 people. And that's a lot of eyeballs on your logo. We're going to send this many social media posts. So that's going to really enhance your brand. So matching gifts. The other piece is like we want to bring new people into our funnel because 50% donor attrition happens even with best stewardship. Maybe it's a little bit better, but if you don't know about this, ping me afterwards. Google gives away $10,000 a month of free advertising for qualified nonprofits, which are 501c3s, even I think, but private, 501c3 foundations as well. Free advertising. You set up campaigns. You can actually do this to kind of just inform, right? Like inform people. So top of the funnel, you're creating awareness about what you're doing. Maybe you want to have some campaigns that go to your constituents, like, hey, come to the Good Health Clinic. We give away free healthcare to people in the Keys, right? So you're talking about you can have these campaigns aimed at so many different things to inform, to drive donations, to talk about board members, to get corporate sponsors for your events. It is free money. So email me if you want more information about it. I'm working with a company that is great. They will get you the grant and they will run it for you. And it's anywhere from $3.99 to $6.99 a month. But if it's free advertising, it's actually really a good thing for you to consider. Or you can take it in-house and I'll just share with you how to do it. So I've got some resources for you. And then the last thing kind of I'll end with is I think I talked to the group here before about DAFs and about non-cash gifts, but baby boomers have acquired the largest amount of assets, of any generation, and they are giving via DAFs. The Ocean Reef and Community Foundation, they are DAFs. So, a DAF is a place where we, can put our money and we get that immediate charitable donation. But right now, there's no regulations that say when people have to spend that money. They do have to go to a charity. So DAFs are growing and growing and growing. And there's a lot of money in there. So start communicating with people that you will gladly accept non-cash gifts or, money or gifts from a DAF. It can be simple as adding some website, language to your website. The other piece is when you ask people to give a non-cash gift. So, the stock market, God, please keep continuing, is, like to retire someday, right? Is growing. So there's a lot of appreciated stock in there. So if you have meetings with your major donors, or any donor, and you say, you know what, I know that you've given $10,000, this time of year. Would you consider giving a non-cash gift of appreciated stock? Oh, okay. That money I probably put in the market a long time ago and it's growing. So when I give appreciated stock, I don't have to pay capital gains on it. You're getting the benefit. And statistically, charities get a lot more money when they ask for it in non-cash. It's great for people that are kind of the retirees because okay, I know what I can spend. It's not disrupting their cash flow. That makes sense. It's not disrupting your cash flow. So I'm not worried about it as much. Oh, if I give $10,000, well, let me look at my bank accounts. I got to move money around. I got to do this and that. Oh, I can't really go on that cruise, whatever it is, right? I'm but if I ask for it, it's been money that's been sitting aside. It's a lot more, it's a lot less painful for me, right? To be considered to give it. And I want to be able to do that. I want to have an impact. So just consider that. And then there's some other steps that you need to do if you get those non-cash gifts. It's not insurmountable. You need to open up an account, with a brokerage firm, and you need to have some forms and a gift acceptance policy. And that can look like, we will we will sell the stocks within a month, or again, it's pretty simple, but absolutely consider adding that because you will see a real big rise in your donations. So this was your action plan that we had here. Really, again, the first part of it is your foundational stuff, all the boring stuff. Then we talked about the cultivation, your time right now to re-engage or engage and have those conversations and activate your board members and build that campaign. And then you've got launch. And so we've talked about how to do that. And then at the end of it, you breathe and you thank your donors. You thank your donors. And by the way, don't forget then at the end of all this to recap what you did so that when we have the conversation next year, you actually know what worked and what didn't work. So that's, if you ping yourself there, put some time in your calendar in January, come up for air, do that post-mortem, fill it out, stick it in a folder, and you'll thank yourself next year when you come back to it. So I think that's it. Hopefully I've covered everything, and it's been a pleasure. I will open it up to more. I don't know how much time we have, Hannah, so I was trying to go fast. I think we have an hour, so talked a lot, but want to be mindful of everyone's time. But here's my contact information. If you have questions, if you want to find out how I work with nonprofits, I'd love to talk to you. And yeah, I will throw it over to you and answer any other questions.
Yeah, really fantastic, Carolyn. I think really, really good information. And I really appreciate you sharing all that. As you were going along, I kept just thinking, yes, exactly. That is all just exactly what we need to be doing. So I think that's was really great. I also just want to mention that if anybody, any nonprofit would like us to, at the Community Foundation, we can process gifts of stock for free for you. So you can put that on your website that if they want to give a gift of stock, to give it through the Community Foundation, and we will process that for you for free. So yeah, and any questions for Carolyn real quick? I know everybody's got to go.
Just to say thank you, Carolyn, as always. I mean, what you say is like not rocket science, honestly, but the way you've so clearly laid it out and made it feel like the little pieces of it are actually doable, I think is enormously empowering. So, thank you for that. And we normally have recordings of these meetings, right? So I'm eager to share this with some of my colleagues to whom I've been saying things along these lines, but I think hearing it from your voice of authority will help us. We're not going to change everything overnight. I mean, I think that's the other thing too. But there's incremental improvements that we can make that I think would have a big impact on our outlook. So
Yes, absolutely. And, I remember getting pushback from board members on the number of emails sending out towards the end of the year, but they are the ones that are reading every single email, and most people are not, so just remind them of that.
I mean, we sometimes get in our own heads, right, about things, and they're like, "Oh, I can't use this picture because I used it 4 months ago or a year ago." I'm like, "Do you think oh, I'm not going to give to them because they use this chat?" No, no, we are so close to it. That's why it's good, and I do agree. Sometimes having another voice, right, be able to hear and talk to your board is important. So, but
Linda, do you have a question?
Yeah, real quick. And again, thank you. This is, again, it just reinvigorates me to, I can't believe we're middle September. So now I'm like in a panic. Anyway, I just really quick wanted to share too about that 100% board participation. Just heads up, everyone. We lost a grant opportunity because we only showed 75%. We have very involved board members, but not everyone is actually writing a check throughout the year. And this is becoming more and more a part of the grant application process now too. So don't be surprised. Maybe reach out to your board members and say, just give me $10. I need to be able to say that we have everybody on board with our board supporting what we're doing here, because yeah, it could turn around and not be good. Anyway,
board members have a fiduciary role as board members, so they absolutely need to be supporting That's why I always advocate for like board engagement letters with signatures, and they say a gift of significance to them, because you can have someone that can add a lot more zeros next to a check, and then someone that could be, again, it could be the voice of a constituent, right, that you have right at your shelter, right? So it's a family that you've helped. You need their voice on your board, but they're not able to write a big check.
Exactly.
But you still need their support, and it's really a great point, Linda.
Thank you. Yeah.
Carolyn, I have a quick question. And I also want to thank you. This information has been fantastic. I'm glad you're going to send out a recap. I was actually turned my video off to take screenshots of everything because it's so valuable. My question was with regards to the Google ads. I've actually seen that advertisement and I looked into it, and it almost appeared as if it was just for specific nonprofits, like religions based. No? Okay.
No. You're going to get my email. Just send me an email, and then I will connect you.
Okay.
100%. No, do it. It's great.
Session on that sometime, because it's a big thing for people to start doing, but it is a great opportunity.
And
We got to take advantage of free money.
I know this could also be a whole nother session, but in the beginning of your presentation, Carolyn, you mentioned growing your email database. And I wonder if anyone has great ideas on how they do that.
That would be
One
a
thing
great
is just
session.
having a pop-up on your website. You will get a lot more people signing up if you have a pop-up on your website to sign up for our newsletter.
There's a lot of captures, but donor acquisition, and I say donor acquisition, really it's contact information first, right? Because we have to bring people and create that awareness. So when you get the Google AdWords grant too, by the way, you can run campaigns just to create it. And so it's a whole other conversation, kind of talking about, again, even like you could have little things on your website that are like a white paper, like what are you an expert about? And then you could be like, hey, to get this little like one pager on XYZ, right? On starting your own small business. I'm looking at Isabel, right? Like you can have your, and here's like a one pager, click here. And then it's locked behind tell us where to send the paper. And they put their name and their email, right? And then you ping it over, and all of a sudden you've captured them, and you have a default saying we're adding you to our newsletter list. And they have to uncheck it. But so there's ways to do it. But your email list is really your bread and butter. So think about it that way. So when you do events in the community, anywhere you go and you're not able to capture, like you've got to try to figure out workarounds on that. Well, fantastic.
Awesome.
Good luck to everyone. I'm here if you need me. Thank you
Thank you
for
so
having
much,
me.
Carolyn. This was really awesome. We really appreciate it.
Carolyn,
Thank you.
thank you for
Take care,
joining.
everyone.
You. Have a great day.
Bye.
That was
Bye,
great. Thank
everybody.
you.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.